morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're just, so Chair White, we're just dealing with a couple of technical issues here, and once we have them solved, I see that Margaret is connected to audio.
You're welcome.
Margaret, it looks like you can hear us, but I can't hear you.
You have to unmute.
Oh, you can do that? Yes. Okay. So I think, Councillor Bird, you're now unmuted. You were muted 2 minutes ago.
Okay.
Ah, there you are.
Perfect.
So Councillor White, whenever you're ready, I think we're ready to rock and roll.
Okay, sounds good. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We will this is our first video Zoom meeting as a committee, so I'm going to go slowly when I'm calling for votes, just to make sure that I get everybody's hands. But otherwise, it's a meeting as per usual. So I'm just going to look for any disclosures. Do we have to do the roll first, Mr. Tifo?
I will, just in case. I can see most people, but we'll quickly go through the roll. Councillor Bird?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis or Mike Bradley?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Deputy Warden Marriott?
I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Miller?
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Napper?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Bean? Councillor Bean?
Can you hear me?
Now we can, yeah, thank you. Warden Weaver?
Present.
Of course, Chair White. Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? I see.
No.
Okay, so I believe we're going right to Dr. Ranade for an update on the COVID-19 situation.
Should mute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Very slightly.
Okay, hang on. How about now?
That's good.
Better? Okay. Good. Okay, good morning, everyone. I hear a little bit of feedback, so if someone's not on mute, then please mute. That might help. So, good morning. Before I start, I'm going to give some extra special kudos to Councillor Ferguson, who seems to have mastered the art of the Zoom background. Let me give you a brief update on what's going on here. And I think how I'm going to try to do that, and just bear with me, I'm going to hope that the technology works here, is that I'm going to, oh, you've disabled screen sharing. Oh, okay. If there's a way to enable that, I'd really like to show you something. I don't know if Stefan or, sorry, give me 1 second.
Hi, Dr. Renade. Melissa's working on that right now.
Okay, perfect. So what I'll tell you while we're waiting is that we're reporting a confirmed number of 119 cases with 11 deaths, 35 folks who have recovered. And this is out of a total number of tests that we've received of about 669, of which 550 were negative, which is an 80% negative rate. What I'd really like to show you, though, so hopefully let me know when that's ready or when we can do that. I'll just try again. Oh yeah, it's there. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Are you all seeing this?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So what I really want to show you here is the graph of cumulative numbers of confirmed COVID cases in Lambton. I hope it's big enough that it should take up most of your screen, so you should be able to see it. Note that this is not the entire number of cases, right? It's only based on 102 cases because those are the ones for whom we have a date of onset. As other onset dates of symptoms are recorded, they'll get added onto this graph. But you can see a nice... Sorry? Oh, okay. Oh, that's me. Sorry, I'm hearing myself in an echo. Can you see my mouse as well? Can you see that? Not really. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, you can. Oh, great. Thank you, Warden. So here's the important thing, and people have been asking me, are we at the peak? Are we past the peak? What's going on? So provincially, there's some suggestion that we might be hitting or at the peak of this, which is encouraging because it suggests that the social distancing, physical distancing measures are having their intended effect. What you need to know when you look at this graph is that all of the numbers that are to the right side of my mouse, so where I'm pointing my mouse here, the parts that make it look like we're plateauing, that set of data could change any day. Because as we get more information about when people's onset of symptoms was, we add or change that graph. So in order to really understand the parts of the graph that won't change, you have to look to the left side, which is down here. So this data is encouraging and it's reassuring, but it's not definitive. So when this plateau moves over here to this side where we know that data is not going to change, we'll be much more comfortable saying that we've gotten to a peak or that we've hit a peak. But it is reassuring, it is encouraging. I think it highlights the need for continued measures. And it's important to know that, and you all know this too, that these measures are not without other direct or indirect costs, right? Both to the economy and to people's health and to their social lives. So this is not a costless intervention. But having said that, we can also demonstrate that we think it's working to the extent that it can work. So that's reassuring. A couple of other things I want to tell you. I can stop sharing the screen so then that might help the audio. A couple of other things I want to tell you. So there's been an increased focus on testing. Remember that testing is an important part of an overall strategy to contain this disease. And tests are being developed, changed, altered at quite a pace. But they're still new, right? And so we're still learning about the value of these tests in different situations. You will see expanded test availability. So now the swab backlog has really cleared. We have a lot of those. We're going to be putting them into the hands of more folks. So potentially having another place at which people could get assessed, and ensuring that retirement homes and long-term care homes have access to the swabs. It's important to remember, I don't know if I think Councillor Napper is in the other, oh yeah, there you are, Councillor. You had a good question about, would that mean that we would test everyone even if they don't have symptoms? And currently, we don't have enough information to say that the test in people who don't have symptoms is reliable. The concern around that then becomes if you take a test in someone who has no symptoms and that test comes back negative and you act upon the presumption that they don't have COVID-19, you may be doing the wrong thing because those people may actually be incubating disease and have COVID-19 either symptomatically or not later. So the current thinking on testing of asymptomatic people is that test may not be very reliable, but in a symptomatic person, the test has much more reliability. So certainly ensuring that everyone in long-term care homes and retirement homes who has symptoms can be tested is a current priority, and we're working with the community paramedicine unit, the assessment center, and the long-term care homes and retirement homes to make sure that can happen. And then in terms of a high-level sort of overview of what else is happening, you'll see that there have been the closures and the school closures have been extended. That's an appropriate thing to do because we don't yet have I guess what we're calling an exit strategy, right? Which is how do you lift these things in a manner that allows you to quickly identify, detect, and isolate cases so that you prevent further transmission once you lift all of these restrictions. So ongoing closures and school closures, etc., are an appropriate thing to do. I'm hoping that there's time now being spent preparing for the exit, preparing for how we would do that, and looking at different models of how that works. So I'll leave my remarks there and then ask if you have any questions. I hope the screen sharing bit was effective. If not, you can go to our website and see it.
Okay, it looks like Councillor Bird has a question for you. Councillor Bird, are you unmuted?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Renaud, can you tell us specifically what this test is, what you actually do and how you do it, please?
Sure. It's going to be a bit graphic, but here we go. You take a swab, you put it up someone's nose, it goes to the back of their throat and tries to obtain secretions that are at the back of someone's throat through their nasal passage. That's thought to be more reliable than a simple throat swab. And that test is then sent to the lab to analyze for particles of the virus. So the thinking here is that if you have the virus and so the way viruses work in your body is they basically get your own cells to produce more virus. And so as your cells produce more virus, that virus is excreted through things like your nasal secretions, saliva, and so forth. And so the idea is to test for the virus in those secretions to see if there are any viral particles in there.
Okay, thank you. And is there not any way that you can do a blood serum test to achieve the same results?
So blood serum testing would be in general for a very different purpose. And if we were to obtain those tests, so people are trying to develop those tests right now, they would be tremendously useful because what they would enable us to do is tell the difference between a recent infection and an infection from which someone recovered. And so that would be wonderful. Those tests are in development and they would also need to be approved. But they would also add to our understanding of this disease. So rather than just saying, oh, you have a throat swab that has some viral particles in it, but we don't know if you're still infectious, we'd rather be saying we can do a blood test, but that's still a ways away. A blood test to see if you've recovered from infection, but that's still a ways away.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Councillor Miller, I obviously can't see your hand. Do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Renedy, I have one. You had just briefly discussed at the end there the exit strategy or the hope that there's an exit strategy being worked on. So are you aware that that is the next phase that is currently in development, or is that just currently your expectation that it would be?
A bit of both. So I think everybody expects that there will be some kind of exit strategy, and I'm aware that there are conversations happening about that. What I'm not aware of is how far they've progressed, because I think certainly everybody's also still holding their breath on the health system side. So we're sort of like paying attention to the health system, but also there's a need to build an exit strategy while you do that. So I believe those conversations are happening. I'm just unaware of their progress.
Okay, and in a further question, I heard yesterday in Premier Ford's address that the hospital system has not had the surge that was anticipated and prepared for. Is that what you're experiencing here as well in Lambton County?
Yes, that's exactly what we're seeing here too. So our ICU has not reached capacity. The hospital's done an excellent job of making spaces available to meet a surge capacity, and so we have it if we need it, but we're waiting to see if we need it. And so far, that tremendous surge has not been here. That's a similar thing that's happening in the rest of the province as well, which we're very grateful for. We're trying not to take it for granted and make sure that surge capacity remains if it's needed. Yes, that is what we're seeing. So that is another encouraging sign when you pair the number of cases and the graph that I showed you with the data from the health system. That's also very encouraging.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from anybody? Yes, like Councillor Rombouts would like to jump in with a question, and then Warden Weaver.
I did have a resident ask about immunities testing or antibodies testing. Is that on the horizon at all, Dr. Renedy?
So that would be the same as the blood test that we were talking about, so that if you were able to get a blood test that could determine that you had previously had infection but had recovered from it, that would be what that antibody test is really about, to say that, yes, we know you had it, but you're okay. Or that you're not infectious, or that you've recovered. So it's the same kind of concept, and I would say that those, I don't know that there's sort of a date by which that would happen, but I know that the people who are working on it are probably working as hard as they can on it.
Okay. And Warden Weber, you were raising your hand?
Yes, I don't have a question. I guess I'd like to have a shout out to the community that has helped us to flatten the curve. People are following guidelines and doing what's needed to be done. Huge shout out to Dr. Ranaday. I know he's had 4 weeks of a tremendous amount of work and participation. He's got an entire team at Lambton Public Health, and they need our congratulations and support. This is not over. I understand that. We've got to keep up the vigilance and keep up what we're doing, but thank you so far for doing the right thing.
I appreciate that, and I will convey that to the team. Thank you.
And thank you, and I suppose it goes without saying, Dr. Ranaday, but if there's anything else you need from council, obviously individually or as a whole, then just be sure that you reach out for us, because I know that we're all in some ways sitting on the sidelines anticipating what our next move would be, and we're certainly here willing to help in any way that we can.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, with that, thank you, Dr. Ranaday. We appreciate that, and we'll move on to our regular agenda. So we're going to move into item 3, which is infrastructure and development services. We've got an information report, and that is on the service level impacts. So that is item A under number 3. That is one item only under that. So do we have any input from staff? As I see Mr. DeLine's on. Is there anyone from staff that would like to speak to this report?
Mr. Chair, it's Jason Cole. I can just very briefly indicate that Infrastructure and Development Division, it's trying to operate normally. Our Building Services Department continues to review and issue permits, as well as act on bylaw requests. They are also assisting the OPP in the 10 municipalities that they service for bylaw in enforcing orders where they are the appropriate mechanism to do so. Our planning department continues to service all of its municipalities. I think you've seen your staff continue to be engaged where they are your service provider. And infrastructure and development is continuing with the delivery of the capital program as critical infrastructure, even under the new orders. Where we have non-critical infrastructure, we're considering, excuse me, we're considering the need to proceed with those immediately or later in the year. So I think that's a pretty brief effective summary.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the report. Any questions for Mr. Cole?
Yes, Mayor Napper here. I'd like to ask. I'd like to ask the question under the Cultural Services Division where it says financial implications, and I see they're moving staff around. So those wages, will they go against the library, the Culture Service, or they go against whoever they're put off to? Like, I know there's been a lot of layoffs there, and there should be savings there, I thought, but perhaps does each division pick up if they go to the health unit? I noticed some over at the home there. Does that come under their budget then?
I suppose we'll wait until we get to cultural services to speak to staff on that one, unless you're specifically asking if there's maybe any crossover into infrastructure services.
Yeah, that's basically what I was asking there, because there are movement within the different divisions there. Maybe it's an inappropriate question. I don't know. It's just a thought I had, but
Okay, I think Mr. Palarchio would like to respond to that.
Through you, Councillor White, at this point in time, the costs that are being incurred by library staff that are redeployed to infrastructure and development services will be continued to be charged to the cultural services area. We may revisit that, but at this point in time, those staff that are redeployed will be charged to the library.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Warden Weaver?
Yes, just to deal with that a little bit, I believe that the finance department has set up a coding. So anything that has gone through the system that's dealing with COVID-19 changes and all that, I think has a different code on it. So it'll be able to be tracked and looked after at the end. And I think that's my understanding of that. And I would like to move the information report.
Thank you for that. Is there a seconder for this report? Let me see, Councillor Dennis looked first on my screen. Any further questions? All in favor? That looks good. Councillor Miller, in favor?
I am.
Thank you. Opposed? I don't think I saw anybody, but all right, that's carried. So item B is a report requiring a motion regarding County Road 12 and the addition of $300,000. Would we like to, I'll take a motion to put this on the floor. Councillor Dean, seconder, Councillor Cook. Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of, I guess, maybe I'm just moving this. Are we just moving this, or are we going to, I forget, do we just move this to put it on the floor to talk first, or do we just accept
It's really your option. I think right now I've got Councillor Bean and Councillor Cook to put it on the floor, but if you want to convert that into accepting the recommendation, we can easily do that.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll convert that to accepting the recommendation if that's okay with the mover and the seconder. Just a head nod would be great. And okay, and any discussion or questions on that? It doesn't look like any. Okay, all in favor?
I'm in favor, Councillor White.
Thank you, sir. That's unanimous. Okay, thank you, Mr. Cole. And we'll be moving on to public health services. Item A in the information reports and item B do not require are not motions that or do not require motions, so we'll just take a motion to put them on the floor to accept these reports. We'll do them both together, so may I have a motion to accept these reports for both A and B. That looks like everybody wants to move that pretty much, so we'll say Councillor Cook and Deputy Warden Marriott. Any discussion on either of these reports, please? Questions? I see none. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Opposed? None? Okay. Thank you. And moving on to cultural services. We have one information report here regarding the COVID-19 impacts to services. May I have a motion to accept this information report, and then we'll hear from staff. Warden Weaver and Councillor Dennis seconds that. We have a question for staff already. Warden Weaver?
Not really a question. I just, I think the Cultural Services Division has had a lot of most of the closures and has did an exceptional job of redeploying staff and helping out other areas that need that. And I just a shout out to them. It's going to be a while till things get back to normal here, and I think they've done a great job. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. Mr. Meyer, is there anything you'd like to, any blanks you'd like to fill in for us or highlights?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Warden Weaver, for those comments. Maybe what I'll just do is provide clarification as a follow-up to Councillor Napper's question. So just for clarification, we have seen significant redeployment to support other divisions, primarily Lambton Public Health with some communication support and long-term care with some screening support at our 3 long-term care homes. We have not had any redeployment to infrastructure and development services, but to answer your specific question, those costs associated with those individuals being redeployed are being tracked, as Larry had mentioned, through a COVID-19 pay code, so that we can keep a very good accounting of any costs related to redeployment as a result of the pandemic. So just wanted to provide some clarification on that point.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Any comments from council or from the committee? I see none. So we've got a mover and seconder to accept this report. All in favor?
I'm in favor, Councillor White.
Thank you, sir. That's unanimous. Thank you. And that's it for cultural services. So we would now ask the committee to move into closed. Or is there a comment there? Councillor Bean?
No, I'm just gonna make a motion to go in camera.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Cook? All in favor? All in favor of going into closed?
Here.
Thank you. So we will now move into closed, which means I believe you have to pause the live.
Councillor White, we're going to stop the stream to YouTube. So once I get confirmation that the stream has stopped, we'll proceed. And by the way, I've interpreted the Councillor Cook to be Councillor Ferguson this morning.
Ah, yes.
The notes.
I don't know what I'm
Can I just break in for a minute? For us old guys,
Yeah.
can we just have a quick back in a flush minute?
Yes.
For those of you members of the public on the YouTube channel, we will be proceeding in camera, and therefore the YouTube channel will now, or the stream to the YouTube channel will now cease. Once we complete the in-camera portion of this meeting, we will simply go back into open session to adjourn the meeting. And now we are off of the YouTube stream.